Well, hello folks, and welcome to the official, I believe this is episode number 10 of the Logan Pettis Show. Why do we call it the Logan Pettis Show? Because I'm Logan Pettis, and this is my show. This is a place where you get my unfiltered, uneducated, fun takes on just about anything and everything that I can think of to give you a take on. And today is official Nintendo Switch Day, and I know there are a lot of content creators and a lot of YouTubers and a lot of people out there that have already covered the Nintendo Switch already today that sat up. We watched a bunch of people, Woodhawker and them, shout out to Beat 'em Ups right there. But we watched a lot of people on YouTube last night who waited for the midnight release. Fortunately, we had a pre-order, so we didn't have to sit and wait through all that mess. The thing came in at like 6:30 this morning. And a nice lady who was hired by Walmart came and dropped it off in front of, shout out to show sponsor Uncle Wiggly's Wieners, but right there in front of Uncle Wiggly's Wieners, here you go, here's your box. A lot of people unfortunately had their pre-orders get canceled, I think. I don't know, there's a whole big mess that went into it, but we're going to do something that I don't typically do, and that's do an unboxing. For those of you that listen to me on Spotify, I'm sorry that you cannot see me unbox this thing, but for those of you that watch on YouTube, you'll get to see it. So I'm just going to jump into it, and then I want to talk a little bit about a couple of other things. The big news story coming out of San Antonio right now is actor Jonathan Joss and the drama surrounding that situation, and we'll talk a little bit about that. John Redcorn, of course, in King of the Hill, being one of my favorite characters on that show, and I'm sure he was a lot of other people's favorite characters. But yeah, actor Jonathan Joss, it's a tragic situation no matter what happened, but happier things to come. I've got clearly my Logan hat on with my Logan t-shirt, and here we go. We are going to unbox this bad boy. Again, this was delivered on behalf of Walmart. Shout out to Walmart. I'm looking for sponsors, but since their name is on the thing, we're gonna tear this open. You guys get to see a little glimpse of like Christmas right now. As we open the bag, and by golly, this is a heavy box. By golly, there she is, the Nintendo Switch 2 right there. Nice look at this box as stands off to the side. You want to come and say hi? See, it's Megan Logan, M and L. All right, so look at that. Here are the Joy-Cons. You got it's supposed to be red, but that is kind of like a salmon colored Joy-Con. Still looks salmon to me. And there is is that like
It's Blastberry.
Yeah, Blastberry. Is that what they're actually supposed to be called? No, we're just making up color names at this point.
Made up that color.
No, this is speaking of John Redcorn, I lost it. The Blue Rock, the Native Americans turquoise.
Blue Rock. Sometimes
names escape me. All right, and here is the TV screen thing. This is it. This is the gajigger right here with the little sucker here that comes out and holds that up. And these bad boys just magnetize there. It's probably upside down. I don't know. Put these on.
This one has a release button.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's got a magnet release. It's not like the first where you just kind of pull.
Fancy pants. All right. So is there like more than one way to put these on, or?
I think you can actually put them on backwards. The colors coincide, blue and red.
Whatever. There it is. There's the actual, you can't see it when I put it down there. But what else comes in the box? We have, of course, your safety manual. Here is your charging cable. This is this is the HDMI cable. This is the HDMI to your TV. A couple of these little wrist thingies so that way, you can't get angry and just fling your Joy-Cons across the room. But that is there. This is your charging deal. This looks like it is a USB-C charger, USB-C to USB-C. So, yeah, right there. And then in here is your this is for your Joy-Con remote thingy. I have that backwards. It goes this way. Anyway, your Joy-Con remote thing. As you can hear, the Switch being played already off to the side. And one last item that is inside this box. This is a cooling fan, it looks like. Oh no, this is the dock station. This is the dock station, duh. Right there is the dock station for the Switch 2. So, that is everything that is in the that come standard with the Switch 2. You get the dock station, you get your HDMI cable, these little thingies that keep you from flinging your deal across the room, the little gajigger that you put your Joy-Cons in, so you can play it like it's a real game system. I don't like the Joy-Cons. They're too small and I have big fat thumbs.
Yep.
We've got more stuff to get to. Here is your charging cable and your thingy jigger. And then, of course, we ran to Walmart this morning to pick up these toothbrushes and this toothpaste. But that's for a whole nother adventure. But we did also pick up for a good sum of money. We have a Pro controller. I love the Pro controller. It's one of the best controllers. It's a fine controller. I said to myself, I can't think of a better controller to have than the Switch 2 Pro controller. Out of all the controllers I've ever had, it's a great controller. Anyway, we picked that up. And we also picked up, launch title right here, Super Mario Kart World. It's just Mario Kart World. There is no Super. It's just Mario Kart World. It should be Super Mario Kart World because it has Super Mario down here on the front of it. But love Mario Kart, so this will be a fun play as the day goes on. So, there's that. That is the Nintendo Switch. As I am doing this podcast, that Switch is being hooked up to a television, I believe, right now. So, there will be a review later, possibly on the sister channel, Unexpected Journey, the Geographic Gypsy. One of the multiple channels that I'm involved with will carry that. Now, I want to get into this thing with Jonathan Joss. So, this is a crazy story coming out of San Antonio. Monday, I believe it was. Actor Jonathan Joss, you may know him as John Redcorn from King of the Hill. Of course, John Redcorn, one of my favorite, as doors are being slammed on me. One of my favorite characters in King of the Hill. I love the whole Dale and Nancy and John Redcorn love triangle. One of my favorite moments is where they're trying to unwrap the aliens that got Nancy pregnant, and Dale's trying to explain this, and in the process they reveal that John Redcorn had cheated on Nancy, and Nancy gets mad. He's standing there and he's like, that is to say that Dale never would have cheated on you. There were isolated incidents. Or, the clip is being shown where Peggy figures out that John Redcorn's sleeping with Nancy, and she goes, well, John Redcorn. And he goes, Peggy Hill. I also like the episode where he's teaching Bobby about all the things that the white man stole from him. His character in Parks and Rec is actually, I find that even funnier. What's his name? Ken Hotate in Parks and Rec. I loved that character. I thought that was super funny. And a fun story, I don't know if I have my phone on me. So one of my friends for this very podcast gave me Mr. Joss's contact information, and I did have a moment to, yeah, there it is, right there. I don't know, and I saved him as John Redcorn in my phone. But yeah, there it is, his phone number, and I called him and I said, hey, I have this little show, I just started it, I don't have any followers to speak of. It's not like, we're doing this massive thing here, but I would love it if you'd come on the show and just talk about your career and whatever you're involved in and whatever. And at the time, he's like, yeah, I'd love to come on, my house burned down and stuff. He told me a little bit about that. Nothing, no details or anything, but yeah, that's just how it was. All right, whatever. And we just never had time for him to do the thing. Like I said, I think I talked to him a grand total of 5 minutes, and he seemed like an okay guy. And a lot of my friends, I have several friends that were friends with this guy, and they say he was the nicest, sweetest man on the planet. But TMZ was the first, I believe, to break the story. I'm going to read this from CNN, though. It says, again, this is from CNN. It says, Jonathan Joss, an actor who voiced the character of John Redcorn on King of the Hill and appeared as Ken Hotate on Parks and Rec, has died following a shooting incident, according to police in San Antonio, Texas. He was 59. According to a spokesperson for the San Antonio Police Department, officers were dispatched Sunday to a location on Dorsey Drive in San Antonio, Texas, which, for those of you that don't know, is on the south side of San Antonio. Dorsey Drive in San Antonio, Texas, for a reported shooting in progress. Officers found Joss, quote, near the roadway of the location, where they, quote, attempted life-saving measures, end quote, until paramedics arrived. The actor was pronounced dead by emergency service responders. A suspect has been arrested on suspicion of murder, and an investigation is ongoing. Joss's husband, Tristan Kern de Gonzalez, confirmed his death in a text message to the Associated Press. In a statement to AP, Gonzalez said he and Joss were approached and threatened by a man with a gun while checking the mail at Joss's home, which in January was damaged by a fire that also killed their 3 dogs. Jonathan and I, this is a quote, Jonathan and I had no weapons. We were not threatening anyone. We were grieving. We were standing side by side when the man fired. Jonathan pushed me out of the way. He saved my life, De Gonzalez said. On Monday, SAPD said in a statement posted to social media that currently the investigation has found no evidence to indicate that Mr. Joss's murder was related to his sexual orientation. That's one of the big parts of this story is this a hate crime? On Parks and Recreation, Joss portrayed Chief Ken Hotate, tribal elder of the Wamapoke Native American tribe and owner of the Wamapoke Casino. He took on his King of the Hill role in the show's 2nd season after original voice actor Victor Aaron died as a result of an automobile accident in 1996. Joss voiced the role until the show ended. The popular animated series has been rebooted and is set to premiere August 4th on Hulu. Joss reportedly participated in the new series. A video recorded days before his death shows Joss at a King of the Hill panel and a sneak peek at the Paramount Theater in Austin, Texas. So there's a lot to unwrap from this. Originally, when this story came out, it was said that this all had to do with a hate crime. There's a whole lot, and I don't want to dwell on this because there's a whole lot of misinformation and confusion and just terrible things that are coming out of this. But I want to talk about it a little bit. And then, in the comments below, leave me what you think about this. Was this a hate crime? Was this, just a spat between 2 neighbors? So there's a lot coming out. It says, 2 days before he was killed, Jonathan Joss crashed a King of the Hill panel. He just showed up. It says, a few hours before I was scheduled to moderate. This is coming from... Where is this coming from? MSN? It's a story by Michael Schneider. It says, effect of her not-so-secret love affair, John Redcorn, voiced by Jonathan Joss. Gardner and Joss weren't included on the ATX panel, as it was meant to be a small gathering led by creators Mike Judge, also the voices of Hank Hill and Boomhauer, and Greg Daniels. Also on stage were just 3 additional actors, Pamela Alden, who plays Bobby Hill, Toby Huss, who is taking over as Dale Gribble and was also Consup Phone and some other characters in the show. He was Cotton Hill in the show as well. And Lauren Tom, who voices Connie. And basically it says that upset Mr. Joss. He wasn't supposed to be a part of the panel. About 37 minutes in, he starts to discuss the 2023 death of writer and star Johnny Hardwick, who was the original voice of Dale Gribble since the show's beginning. And in finding a replacement for Hardwick, Judge and Daniels decided to keep it in the family and got Toby Huss to come in. Yeah, it says here he voiced Con Phone. Mean, come quick, redneck neighbor, married cousin, you owe me $50. I have so many fond memories of watching this show and the voices, and it's really funny because, and I know a lot of people say this, it's like, this is my childhood and this is my family. I looked like Bobby Hill when I was a kid. So this show really hits home, and my dad and I had kind of that relationship, and I think his dad and he had kind of the same relationship between Cotton and Hank. And so anyway, it just really relatable, really fun show. Anyway, so this article goes on. It says, the fact that you guys trusted me to do his voice again is really humbling, Huss said. It's with love and respect for that guy because he laid down a really wonderful goofball character. The character was a nut, but he had a lot of weird heart to him. And there's a credit to Johnny. We love our guy, Johnny, and it's so sad that he's not here. At that moment, Joss leapt up from the audience and walked toward the microphones that had been set up for the audience questions. And those mics weren't live, however, as we hadn't started that portion of the panel. There's Jonathan Joss, who plays John Redcorn, Daniel said, introducing him, and at first it appeared that Joss had interrupted the panel to pay tribute to Hardwick. You were talking about Johnny, and I want to say something about him, Joss said. But then Joss started to refer to what he was told as he had walked over to the mic. This young man said I couldn't stand over there, he said. I guess he didn't know that my land's already gone. He said the mic wasn't going to be used, and I'm an actor. I see a mic, I use it. I see a wrong, I make it right. I want to breathe. Joss references San Antonio home burning down. Our house burnt down 3 months ago, adding to the unusual moment. At that point, someone in the audience screamed out in a Hank Hill voice, "Damn it, Bobby," because I'm gay. He also quoted one of John Redcorn's songs from King of the Hill, "There's a Hole in My Pocket Where My Money Should Go," before going on a few more tangents. At that point, the panel was frozen and the crowd was nervously laughing, not sure how to proceed. One of the panelists let out an, to which Joss responded, "What? You're doing the same thing, sir. The mind's full of emotions and real." Then he finally made his point about Hardwick. "Johnny, he gave you guys a character because he is that character, he is that person." There was another pause and Judge reintroduced Joss to the crowd. "This is Jonathan Joss, the voice of John Redcorn." I love Mike Judge sounds like Hank Hill most of the time. He's like a mix. If you've ever heard him talk, he's a mix between Butthead and Hank Hill all the time. So yeah, it's like, "This is Jonathan Joss, the voice of John Redcorn." Actually, one of my favorite voices he does, I believe he does Dooley on the show King of the Hill, where, you know, it's like, "Oh, I got some new shoes, Dooley." They're new. Anyway, okay. At that point, Joss left the microphone and walked past the stage. It's unclear what happened after that, but Joss wasn't cut off by security or taken away at that moment. He walked off on his own accord. We returned to talking about the show and how the return of King of the Hill would also acknowledge the deaths of two more stars, Brittany Murphy, who played Luann, and Tom Petty, who was Lucky. Executive producer Saladin Patterson didn't elaborate on how they would be addressed, but said, "We found opportunities to let them be referenced on the show. I feel in a very respectful way." Given the awkwardness of Joss's interruption, the audience Q&A was scrapped, and instead of ending with fan questions, we wrapped when I asked Judge and Alden to promote the series, returned the voices of Hank and Bobby. We showed one more preview of the clip and left the stage. Backstage after the panel, the stars and creators discussed Joss's interruption, and it was agreed that letting him speak and not involving security was the proper choice. He got to tell his story. The moment was jarring for everyone on stage that made the news that he had been killed just 2 days later even more shocking. Jonathan Joss brought King of the Hill's John Redcorn to life for over a dozen seasons, including the upcoming revival. Judge Daniels and Patterson said in a statement released on Monday, "His voice will be missed at King of the Hill, and we extend our deepest condolences to Jonathan's friends and family." Some press reports incorrectly reported that Joss was upset because he wasn't in season 14 of King of the Hill, which is not true. Was with not being on the panel. Others suggested that he was stopped from speaking by security, which is also not true. But the circumstances of his death and Joss's ongoing feud with his neighbor, including whether it was a hate crime, as an alleged by Joss's husband Tristan Kernday Gonzalez, are still unclear. San Antonio police arrested one of the couple's neighbors, Sigfrido Alvarez Ceja, in connection to Joss's killing. According to NBC News, police were called to respond to incidents at their home more than 4 times, with the most calls labeled as disturbances. NBC News also reported that police had been mediating a dispute between Ceja and Joss for over a year. King of the Hill is planning on running an off-screen tribute to Hardwick in episode 6, the last episode featuring his voice. Huss takes over after that. Variety is waiting to hear if King of the Hill will now be adding a similar acknowledgement of Joss's death. And so anyway, yeah, he crashed this panel a couple of days before he was shot. I do know that on social media, Jonathan Joss was asking for a ride from Austin back to San Antonio. So the way the story plays out, according to Joss's husband, this Tristan Gonzalez. I want to make sure that I'm getting his name right. Yes, Tristan Kernday Gonzalez. According to the story, they got their ride home. They went back to where Jonathan Joss's house was, and I've seen video of this. Joss's home, he says, was the home built by his father, I believe, for his mother, and they had lived in this as a, so this was his childhood home. And it burned down, or was burned down. This is the speculation that's going on. Again, I don't know what happened with this house. So there are reports, again, Tristan Kernday Gonzalez says they burned our house down, and Mr. Joss spoke on this. They burned my house down because I'm gay. But there's also the video of him talking to San Antonio reporters about how they cut off his gas and cut off his electricity, and they needed to keep warm. So did they start a fire in the house, which then burned the house down? And then, I mean, there's a lot of talking going on from every which direction, and I don't want to necessarily go off of that. You can discuss that in the comments as to exactly what happened, but now it's one of those, didn't it happen? Was it arson? Was it accidental? Was it, a hate crime? So that's the story. They've got some mail, and I guess on the mailbox or next to the mailbox, I don't know, it was one of the dogs' skulls. They had dogs that were inside this house that died, and speculating from here, they they saw this dog skull, and maybe the neighbor, Mr. Seha, was outside sniggering about it. I don't know exactly what happened, but they were grieving, they were sad, they were holding each other and consoling one another over the loss of their dog. And I don't know what was said, but then supposedly shots were fired. Words were said, shots were fired, and a man tragically lost his life on this day. It's all of the in-between that happens. There's the video, you can go find it for yourself. And I want to be 100% completely real and honest, at possible expense of maybe offending a couple of friends of mine. I really don't want to, but it seemed like Mr. Joss was slightly unstable. Having said that, let me play devil's advocate for a minute. If Mr. Joss is feeling like he's being ostracized or he's being harassed or he's, whatever, by this neighbor that he's having this dispute with, and from what I hear, it was over like a land thing. I don't know. It's like my property line is right here with the neighbor, and, if you get within a couple of inches of mowing the grass on one side or the other, it's one of those stupid situations. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened between Mr. Joss and Mr. Seha at all. But, okay, a lot of frustration, a lot of, anger going on in this story. I don't know exactly what happened. I just know I can go off of all the neighbors say that they were constantly bickering and fighting about something. They say at one point it was really cool, hey, we've got this celebrity that lives in our neighborhood, and then I guess some people have said that he acted like a celebrity, if you know what I'm talking about. A little big for his britches, but yeah. And it wasn't even with Mr. Seha that the dispute happened. It was with a brother, and I don't know what that's over. I'm trying to fill in the gaps. I'm actually ashamed that I didn't fill in gaps before I jumped on and started this thing. Maybe I should have, but once again, this is the Logan Pettis Show. It's my show, and so the fact that I've done any research at all is absolutely amazing. But so yeah, this fight happens, and this guy gets shot after this thing. He's already frustrated. He didn't get to be on the King of the Hill panel. He's being ostracized because he's gay. His house is burned down, and he's living in hotels. And then he shows up, and I'm sure it's an emotional experience. There's his dog's skull sitting on this thing, and so he acted a little erratically. There's another video that shows him pacing up and down the street, wielding a pitchfork. And I know it's got to be, that recent time, because he's wearing the exact same outfit he's wearing in a picture that I saw of another friend in a Baracho Pro Wrestling shirt. And it's like, we got John Redcorn in the house, he's doing the thing. And I have a gala, another favorite John Redcorn quote. But so he's walking up and down the street. He's got this pitchfork, and he's screaming about stuff. He's like, what? I can't walk up and down the street. I'm rehearsing. I make movies. It's what I do. And then he says a couple of other things to this lady that is off to the side filming. And then this guy pulls out a gun on me. I can't really make out what's going on. She shot this video from far away, and there's background noise, and he's just shouting. And then, the next thing I know is there's the Ring video. You can find all of this on YouTube, by the way. There's the Ring video of the shots being fired. You hear them pow, pop. I think there's like 3 or 4 shots that are fired. And yeah, I wasn't there. A man tragically lost his life, and San Antonio PD is covering their tail because it doesn't really look good for them, especially they let this guy Seha out on bail, and I'm kind of like, man, let's round up a posse and ride at dawn. This guy is like the new Yolanda Saldivar. It's like, do you really want to be out? This guy's a beloved figure for a lot of people in San Antonio. A lot of people loved this man, Jonathan Joss. They all say he was a very lovely person. And like I said, I spoke to him for about 5-10 minutes, and yeah, he seemed great. He was going to come on my show, which is cool. He unfortunately never got to, and that's sad. But that's where I am right now, where I'm not going to just continually cover the story, but that's what the big news is coming out of San Antonio right now, is this Jonathan Joss story. It is, it is Pride Month this month, and so is this sensationalized to make an interesting story for Pride Month? Maybe. Is it being sensationalized a little bit by Tristan Kernday Gonzalez? I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't offer any insight into this. But, there's no evidence it was a hate crime. It was just 2 dudes that were freaking fighting with each other over property or something dumb. And that's the other half of it is, the San Antonio PD says they came out to his house something like 66 times for different things, mostly disputes having to do between these 2 dudes. And Mr. Joss, they said, had a crossbow at one point, and I don't know, it's just a whole thing. Don't fight it out down at the bottom. I mean, when I say please, if you want to discuss this, we can discuss this and do it down in the comments section. Make sure you like and subscribe, by the way. But yeah, do you think it was a hate crime or do you think it was just a dispute? I'm not going to say that Mr. Seha was ever going to be justified in his actions. You don't just kill a man. That is not cool. It doesn't matter what the situation is or what's going on. But if Mr. Joss was a little rattled, maybe a little erratic and a little unstable because maybe he felt like I said, he was being pressured or he was being something, mental health, man. Mental health is a crazy thing. Maybe he wasn't in the best mental health. Look, I've had my days where I'm having a bad day and I just, So out of that this show was born. A lot of people don't understand, me and what's going on in my head and how to take me. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was basically fired from River City Wrestling because people thought that I was some sort of drama or something. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to make sure that people know, who I am and where I come from. And because I tend to sit in my own corner and keep my mouth shut and not talk to a whole lot of people. And so here we are. I will sit here and I will talk to you. Or this whole show is based on I like to talk to people. It's funny, I will say that I'm not a people person, but I enjoy talking to people. I like talking to people like Carolina Teague and Heather Sneathan and, the people that have been on this show, Pink. I like to bring my friends on and they get to give insights into, how we did this thing. So anyway, that's the Jonathan Joss situation. That's the big story. The other big story in wrestling right now are the releases of from WWE and the backlash that's coming. So they released R-Truth. R-Truth is what, 50, he's like 57, 58, almost 60 years old, I believe. And he can still go. He's still in probably a lot better shape than half the guys that are out there right now. And he's a beloved figure. People love R-Truth. They love that character. He's been funny for the last, he's been there. No, it hasn't quite been 20 years, I don't think. Maybe 15 years. I could look it up. I'm not going to. But at least 15 years he's been on WWE television. I get confused sometimes because I remember he was K-Quick in the 90s with the Road Dogg, and then he left and went to NWA and was their champion there for a minute, and then was the 3 Live Crew. And then somewhere after that, he came back to WWE, and I'm not sure when that was, but he won like the 24/7 championship like 159 times. It's just been great, and they didn't release him. They let him out of his contract, and that surprised a lot of people. And not even they fully let him out of his contract. They said, hey, do you want to work for less money? And he was like, nah, why would I want to work for less money? That's silliness. And then they let Carlito go, and then like The Miz and Gunther and I don't know who else have scrubbed WWE from like their ex Twitter thing. And it's an interesting time. Basically, it seems like they're going to shift off and get rid of a lot of their older people as they bring newer people up from NXT, people like Roxanne Perez, Roxy, and Ren Sinclair, and some of that group right there. It's time for them to move up the ranks and see if they can make stars out of them instead of relying on, like right now, he's in his retirement tour, but John Cena is somebody that's been around for over 20 years, a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't make stars, who can you sell merchandise for? Oh, that's the other thing. Like, is it like 3 point some billion dollars or something that WWE TKO is in debt? Let me see. I can look that up. TKO debt. Here it is. $3.2 billion in debt. And let's see. Yeah, TKO Group Holdings has significant debt, with $3.2 billion in total debt and $2.7 billion of UFC debt due in 2026. The company is highly leveraged with a gross debt of $2.776 billion as of March 31, 2025, and is facing challenges in refinancing its debt, which could impact its financial stability. That is a lot of debt for TKO Holdings, and as a stockholder, I go, but whatever. TKO, man, looks like those prices for WWE tickets aren't going down anytime soon. What's with the prices of WWE? You can't go see a WWE show anymore, which, hey, great for RCW. You guys want quality wrestling entertainment, come watch RCW. Let us entertain you. Let me entertain you. I am the general manager of RCW. Let me entertain you, people. Instead of booing me every time I walk out there just for the sake of booing me. There's no reason. all I do is bend over backwards trying to make sure you people have a good time, and that's how you treat me. Complete disrespect. I just want to be your rocket, people. I'm the greatest, period, entertainer, period, in wrestling, period. I'm not even the greatest manager. I'm the greatest entertainer, folks. I'm an entertaining guy. It brings me to another topic. You guys know how hard it is, and I'm not saying this with any sort of avarice or hubris or whatever the word is. I'm not, constantly trying to pat myself on the back. When you're like that close to knowing that you're going to set the world on fire, but it's like your wings have been clipped, it's a tough spot to be in. I used to be a manager, folks. I am the manager of the year. I have my own belt. Do you guys know why I made this belt, by the way? Can I tell y'all a little story? Oh, way back when, I had come to Texas, and I met this girl. Her dad kind of hated me. I had no prospects at the time. I was a struggling gospel singer. I was living off of singing dates here and there. It was how I got my money, and I showed no signs of growth or prospect or anything else, so I went back home for about 9 months and then came back to Texas. But I had determined that I was going to make something of myself. And anyway, I'm shooting my whole story of I'm a rich boy all to death. But I'll tell this story, since I'm on my show and I get to tell my own story. So I'm coming back to Texas, and I don't know why, but this song got stuck in my head, and it's kind of, girly when you really think about it, and you're like, really, dude, that's the song? But I got stupid Katy Perry's Roar stuck in my head. And it's like, I've got the eye of the tiger, a fighter. I am a champion, and you're going to hear me roar. And it's like, because these people were coming at me one day saying, you've got no prospect, you've got nothing, you'll never amount to anything. I've heard that my entire life. You'll never amount to anything. And I think that's the unrealistic, goal that I set for myself. And it's like, who are you out to prove something to? And I can say that I'm out to prove something to Brandon Oliver. I'm out to prove something to Rainier Pink. I'm out to prove something to Nastico. I'm out to prove something to whoever in the wrestling business or the music business or whoever it is. I can't get past me. I have to prove it to myself, right? And I'm a harsh critic, especially of me. I get in my own way most of the time. But I came down to Texas and I had that in my head. You're going to do this. You're going to do something. You're going to, I'm going to show you that I am a champion. And so I did. I turned things around and made that money. Became something that somebody could invest in and could marry and whatever. And then that's why this is such a big deal. Okay. This came out of, I'll take this off the wall and never get it back. But this came out of this, and there actually should be two of these, but Furman never gave me the other one. This is the actual Texas Wrestling Review Manager of the Year plaque. And this was from 2021, but I won it in 2021 and 2022 as well, after a hard-fought freaking contest where they changed the rules over and over and over again to make sure that I didn't win. Because people told me that I did, it's like you don't deserve it. It's just like being told, you can't be a ring announcer because you're not pretty enough. But yeah, it's like, you don't belong here, you don't belong in our business, and it's like, y'all don't understand the hell that I went through as far as, you want to talk about my training, If you want to count what happened in St. Joe, which I don't, that's like a cup of coffee, but at the very least, it's like you train in this old garage outside that you've heard me tell this story, that the pea-soaked, carpet torn, whatever, and, the harsh conditions because there's no heat in the winter, no air conditioning in the summer. And then I go from that, I move down to Texas. I train with Hernandez, and, we go through that whole process. And you've heard enough stories. You can look him up and see the stories. The mental abuse, physical abuse, he did show me a thing or two. I learned a lot. I won't say that I didn't. I learned a lot, some good, some bad. But I learned a lot from Hernandez. And, but that wasn't good enough for some people. But out of that did come, like the Manager of the Year. I was nominated for Manager of the Year for the time even that I was with him, but I didn't end up winning it. Actually, I do believe it was either Nigel Rabbit or Nastico won Manager of the Year. No, Nigel Rabbit won because I remember Nastico was hot in the contention for it, and he wanted it really bad. And that's why it's funny when he goes on other podcasts, he's like, oh, well, it's not important anyway. It's like, well, you sure thought it was important at the time. I can say the same thing about, and I'm sure Pink will love this when she hears it, but she's the one that popped off at the mouth a couple of years ago and was like, well, you won an unregulated contest, because she gave a speech where she said that she won me that award. Well, you won an unregulated contest, so it doesn't really matter. I'm the, RCW honors member. And it's like, well, you sure as heck were excited about it a few months ago, and you're like, I never really, won any of these kind of contests before, and now I get to be referee of the year, because referee was put on her as a punishment. So yeah, it was really cool then, but we've since kind of gotten over it, and we slowly are working through that whole deal. But, so I win this award, on top of the strides that I'd already made in other parts of my career. But, I got into the wrestling thing, and then it's like, well, I want to prove something. I want to me, it was important to win this. It was a big deal, and I don't care. People want to always discount how I won this, but I still won it. And so I had a championship belt made, because it's like this whole thing came full circle. I am the champion. I am the champion of managers and the manager of champions. Mysterious Q. Anthony Andrews for over 2 years. Eventually I'll have the belt hanging up here. I managed the Flocking Brawlers as the tag team champions, and then Overkill for like that long. But still, they were the tag team champions. I had basically every major championship in this company, and now, I'm the general manager, and I just get to go out and sit, and sometimes I feel like I'm an afterthought. And I'll put that out there. And if it comes up, I will at least know, if anything, that the boss watched the show. But yeah, I don't get to be on camera anymore. I don't get to be on the show. I get to come out and make an entrance. And sometimes that's even during the pre-show. And I say that to say, it's like, what gives? I'm still good enough to be a manager. I am the manager of the year. Nothing changed except for some people got in some people's ears. And there you go. So I'm going to try and hang this back on the wall. I don't know why I felt compelled to tell that story, but I guess I never get to tell my story on my own show or give real thoughts on that. I could elaborate and go into a whole lot more stuff, but yeah, dude, let me entertain you. I'm an entertaining sucker. I am the manager of the year, undisputed manager of the year for like ever, because after I, fought their system that they kept trying to break, because I'd broken their system, and I didn't even break their system. The whole system was get your fans to vote for you. My fans voted for me. I can't help it if my fans are in a whole nother time zone, sometimes in a whole nother country. They love Texas wrestling. They love to watch wrestling. Every time that RCW has an event, they're there, man. They're glued to their computers. They're watching Title Match Network, which you can get for $9.99. And yeah, they're watching River City Wrestling all day long. Don't get me wrong. I will promote River City Wrestling. It doesn't matter. I promoted River City Wrestling when I wasn't in River City Wrestling anymore. I had these belts hanging up at our shop. The only reason they're not at the shop now is because they make a really cool backdrop for what I do here on the Logan Pettis Show. So there you go. That's the Switch Unbox. We talked a little bit about Jonathan Joss. Give me your comments down on the thing. Like and subscribe. Please share my videos to people. And check us out, River City Wrestling, RCW. Our next show is Stars and Stripes Forever from the Von Erich Ranch in Bernie, Texas, which actually is like Sisterdale, Texas. But Bernie, Texas, out there in the country, is going to be a hot one. Yeah. There's a little bit of my story and why it is that I do my Logan Pettis Show. I do. If you guys have an idea for somebody that you would like for me to talk to, let me know. I love meeting and talking to interesting people about interesting things. We just kind of get on this show and just, if you're a fan, we talk. That's all I've got for right now at this time. Heather Sneathan has said that she wants to come back on the show. So, Heather, if you're listening, give me a holler. Come on the show. We can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. That's the whole point of this show. It's the Logan Pettis Show. We talk about the Logan Pettis kind of things, and nobody can tell me not to talk about those things because it's my show. Until next time, this has been Logan Pettis with the Logan Pettis Show. We'll see y'all.